This is Gemara Yevamos Daf Tzadi Beis. All the learning should bring an incredible schoshut of yourself. Chaim Devar Tam Resubas Harach Shalom Lebizav Oiving Intelligent and Chayav Lemutis Vasima Malka, as well as Chishvu Hashem of Chadvalei Bas Saradina Shmal Yusuf and Yervei Shmom Tilom Zavzim Mechlester the Chama Bas Yuvas Avlum Bas Mendel Chaim Moshe and Malka Bashafiku Sheikhana Besaich Sha'ar Chayli Yisrael. And a reminder, if anyone would like to partner for any of the summer dafim or any dafim in general, please reach out. As of course the summer dafim are being put together a little bit in advance, b'siyata d'shmaya, and as well in general, any of the daf, we're happy to share this chos. But for now, we pick it up on Sadi Aleph Amid Beis. We're about 10 lines from the bottom. The first word on line is umizeh, and we finished yesterday this fascinating idea of my havalei lemevad. Is there a place in halacha for such a concept? Almost a very fundamental and wonderful idea when someone says, "There's nothing I could have done." Do we believe that la halacha? That was the discussion of yesterday. Many proofs, each one deflected. But even though each one was deflected, says the Gemara today, again, about 10 lines to the bottom, the first line is Umizeh. Rav Papa savar lemevad uvda b'mai havle lemevad. So Rav Papa thought to paskin in a case like Rav Shimon of my havle lemevad, and allow the woman to go back to her first husband. She didn't do anything wrong. My havalei lemevad, she had no way of ascertaining any more details. So we assume, okay, go back to the first husband, like Rav Shimon said. Amli Rav Huna B'Rei Rav Yeshua Rav Papa. Rav Huna B'Rei Rav Yeshua said to Rav Papa, V'atanya, what about the Braisas Kolani Masnita? What about all these cases? All these cases that we just showed, that seemingly proved, we don't say my havalei lemevad. Amr Lei V'lav Sheninu. Do we not answer up each and every one? Amar Lei. So Rav Huna B'Rei Rav Yeshua responded, still v'ashinua leiku v'lismoich. An interesting idea. Should we go and rely on answers? It sounds almost like once you have a question, you could answer it. The Gemara pushed away each question, but there's still something to the question. So Rav Huna B'Rei Rav Yeshua said, are you still going to rely on it? Upasak. And what happened? Rav Papa agreed to Rav Huna B'Rei Rav Yeshua, and Upasak, as Rashi here points out, is not perhaps the literal, the simple translation of the word. Rashi, 2 lines to the bottom, points out, umana, he refrained. So seemingly in the practicality, my havalei lemevad is not something that one should rely upon in as much as we said, like Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi. Now we begin a new sugya, 3 lines to the bottom. Not really a new sugya, but now we're going back into the din of the Mishnah. The din of the Mishnah that we said that we believe the eidos, the testimony of a single witness. Again, in the case that the husband went overseas and someone testified that they saw him perish. So Amar Rav Ashi, 3 lines to the bottom, Ulukala, Loi Chayshinan. But, we're not concerned for a call, as the bottom Rashi points out what exactly is going on over here. She gets remarried in Bezdin, and then a call. They hear a rumor that that her husband is alive, but he did not come into Bezdin. He didn't come to Bezdin, so we're not concerned of such a call. So again, there was Eida's testimony that this woman's husband died. She went and she remarried, and then what happens? There's a call. There's a rumor. By the way, did you hear the news that this woman's original husband is alive? Says the Gemara, a call, a rumor on its own, we're not concerned about. Asks the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom of Sadi Aleph Amid Beis, hey, Kala, what exactly is the rumor? If you're going to tell me the rumor is after she remarried, after the Nisuin to her second husband, Rashi already taught us one time. The Ravashi already taught us, as we turn over to today's Daf, Sadi Beis Amid Aleph, called Kala the Basar Kedusha Nisuin L'Chayshinan. We're never concerned after the Nisuin, after the new marriage is fully consummated. We're not concerned with any rumors, as the top Rashi points out. For example, if a kohen marries a woman and then there's a rumor, did you hear this woman is really a grusha, a divorcee, or a zaina, which would forbid her from marrying the kohen? We're not concerned with that, says Rav Ashi. So it can't be the din that Rav Ashi is teaching us now, because we already know this din. Explains the Gemara, no, it is the same din. Ma'u de tema. But I would have thought our case is different. The whole story over here was strange. She had to come to Bezdin, and Bezdin had to say, we accept that he does the testimony of a singular witness. And Bezdin gave her the green light to remarry. So perhaps that itself, that detail that she had to come to Bezdin to get the permission, is kikala tekami nesuin dami. Maybe the whole premise of this story is like a call. Maybe it shows there's something shaky over here. So maybe if they subsequently hear a call from overseas, maybe we would reckon with it. And therefore we should forbid her from her new husband. Kamash Malan, know that even though it came about through a shaky pretense, but Bezdin Lamaisa Paskind, therefore we don't believe any subsequent koilis. This is Al Pi Bezdin Teitze. We continue quoting the Mishnah. That what did the Mishnah say? If after the single aid came into Bezdin, Bezdin gives her the green light, she gets married, the original husband comes back. What was the din that we've been speaking about for days right now? Teitze mizeh mizeh, she has to get divorced, but the Mishnah said she does not bring a karban chatas. Explains the Gemara. Amar Zeiri. Says Zeiri, let's understand this din that she doesn't bring a karban chatas. Our Mishnah, the Mishnah that's saying she doesn't bring a karban chatas, is not like the following statement that we heard in the base of Medrash. They learned the following Mishnah. Let's say, and this is really the whole Harius is predicated on these dinim, when Bezdin gives a false and incorrect Psak halacha. If Bezdin testified the sun has set, if Shabbos is over, go and do malacha. Ulubisayif, and after everyone gets in their cars and drives home, Zarcha, look at that, lo and behold, the sun is shining. So they made a mistake in telling everyone that Shabbos was over. Ein zu hayra elatois. That's not a hayra. That's not a Psak halacha. That's not Bezdin getting up and paskening incorrectly. Rather, elatois. It's only a tais. And the difference will be that you will, yes, have to bring a karban chatas. The exemption from the karban chatas is when Bezdin paskins incorrectly. But over here, is that a psak, says the Gemara? What is it? It's a tais. It's a mistake. A mistake is not the same thing as a psak. And as we're going to see further in the Gemara, we're going to get clarity. What is the difference between a mistake and an incorrect psak halacha? Says the Gemara. So the Mishnah is not like that statement, because our Mishnah clearly is a tayis. Because our Mishnah clearly is Bezdin Paskin, she get remarried, and indeed the husband was alive. And yet our Mishnah said she's potter from achatos. But says the Gemara, Rav Nachman Amar Rai. Rav Nachman indeed says, like our Mishnah, that even in such a scenario, even in such a case like our Mishnah, it is a psak halacha, and therefore our Mishnah could fit with the brisa. So the question is our Mishnah a psak, and therefore you're potter from the karban chatas, or is it a toyis, and therefore you're chayiv the karban chatas? The brisa in Beit Midrash, I said a Mishnah, brisa in Beit Midrash would say it's a toyis, not like our Mishnah. Rav Nachman said like a Mishnah. Now Rav Nachman explains. Amar Rav Nachman, Teda, I'll bring you a raya doirahi. I'll bring you a raya that it's a psak. In general, isn't it echad believe a singular witness? No. And here yet we let her get remarried based on the edus of one witness. My timer, says Rav Nachman. Why? You know why? It must be that Bezdin is paskening. It's not just that they had the details wrong. It's a psak halacha. And therefore she would indeed be potter from a karban chatas. Amar Rava comes like Rava, and Rava says, no, Teta the Taisi, I'll defend Zeiri, I'll defend the Braisa, I'll show you that indeed it's a Tais. Why? If Bezdin gave a psak halach with regard to different fats and bloods, and they said you could eat them, again, chaylev with the ches chayiv, is that what you can eat? And Bezdin paskin incorrectly that you could eat it, latira, and then Bezdin saw a reason to be machmir, not eat it. Ki hadri, if they should then go back afterwards. So again, there's a piece of fat, a piece of meat in front of us. First, Bezdin says it's kosher. Then Bezdin say, no, it's possible, it's treif. Then they say, no, you could eat it. Back and forth. Says Rava, we see loy mishkachinu, we don't listen to them. We don't listen when they go back and tell them what? That you could eat it right now. And yet in our case, in our case, when comes, we let her get remarried. Also, Trey, if two Eidim subsequently come, Sarna, she can't get married. Sharina law. If another Eidim would come, then we would indeed allow her. So what do we see in my time? Must be that it's a mistake. So Rav is proving that if it was a hayra, we never allow a hayra psak. And of course, there's a very fine line over here that we're towing on back and forth. But it says Rava that if it was a hayra, you can't go back and forth. For the fact in our Mishnah, we do believe Bezdin back and forth, says Rava, is a proof that it's not a hayra, and rather it's a tois. And says the Gemara about Rabbi Eliezer suffered the tois. We have Zeiri, we have the Brisa of Midrasha, we have Rava, and now we even have Rabbi Eliezer that says as well it is a tois. Who the Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Yaakov Adin is ahar. Says Rabbi Eliezer, the law, the din should make a hole in the mountain. V'tavi chata shmeina, and he says, and she has to bring a carbon chatos. So he Amr b'shlam the tois who misham the hachi ma'isi carbon. If you're going to tell me that it was a mistake, then that's why she has to bring a carbon. But if you're going to tell me that it was upsaki correctly, my mazy carbon, why is she bring a carbon? When Bezdin Baskin is incorrectly, you're put from the carbon. Says the Gemara, this last rayo is not a rayo. But maybe Rabbi Eliezer holds like a different shita there in Hari, is that when a singular person relies on Bezdin, you bring a carbon. In Cain says, the wording itself shows not that way. The wording itself shows like Zeiri, and therefore we have a massive machlokes here whether our Mishnah is following the rules in Haris or not, whether it is a Tais or a Hira, Rava and Zeiri, Rabbi Eliezer, versus the din in the Mishnah, which was as well brought Raya to from Rav Nachman. And we continue about 10 lines from the wide lines, the two dots, says the Gemara, Hayra Bezdin Linasei. That what happens, excuse me, Bezdin gives up sack that she could go and remarry, but what does she go and do, says the Mishnah? She goes and she's mizaneh. So he said in that case, she has to bring a carbon. Why? Bezdin Paskin, she's a single woman. The answer is, Bezdin only allowed her to get remarried. Bezdin never said she could go and be Mizana, of course. So says the Gemara, Michael Kala. What does it mean in the Mishnah that she was mekalkal herself? She acted immorally. I said it's Mizana. What exactly does that mean? So Rav Eliezer Omer Zinsa. So Rav Eliezer perhaps is a simple shot like we explained. Rav Yochanan says no, it doesn't mean she's really Mizana. It means it's a case in which she went and got married be'isser. Either she's a gush of a chalutza, she married regular kohen, or she's an almana and she married a kohen gadol. So says the Gemara, the one that says that she was properly mezaneh, certainly in that case she would have to bring a carbon, because certainly Bezdin didn't allow that. But manda amar almana l'kohen gadol avol zin saloi. If she went and she was mizaneh, it would be considered as if she was following the psak of Bezdin. Of course, she's not allowed to do an aveira, but it's within the same vein of that which Bezdin said, that she's not married to her ex-husband because he is dead. My taima. The amra atanu deshavinan penuya. Because you know what she could say? She tells Bezdin, you said I'm a penuya. You said I'm a single girl. So it's true, she should have gotten married before she had tashmish. But it's not the same level of isser. It's within the same vein of that which Bezdin Paskin, that she could get remarried, and therefore she would be putter from the carbon. Tani Kavazit, Rabbi Yochanan says the Gemara, I'll bring you a raya to Rabbi Yochanan that says the case of the Mishnah is not necessarily mezaneh, but rather almana l'kohen gadol. Says the Brisa explicitly our case. Bezdin said she could go and get remarried, and what did she do? She went and she was mekalkel itself, and now this Brisa explains, like Rav Yochanan in the last narrow line, and the Brisa explains, Chavis Bekarban and Kolbia, Bio, Divi Rav Eliezer, and we have to take one carbon for everything. But Umaydim Chacham and Rav Eliezer should nisses the Chamisha b'nei Adam. Shechavis Bekarban and Kol Echad Echad Hayil V'Guvam Muchlakim, since they're different people. But we see clearly, like the sheet of Rav Yochanan, it doesn't mean stam zenos, it means a wedding be'eser. And that really concludes the previous Mishnah, the long and lengthy Mishnah of a case in which the husband overseas disappeared, and at what level we believe the edus of the Yerecha Tzalar to get remarried, and what happens subsequently when he comes home, etc. And now in our Mishnah, it's a very similar topic. We continue with what happens if there's edus that the husband died, but now we apply the dinim to Yibum. And let's see the Mishnah and then we will explain. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Sadi Bezim and Aleph, Aisha Shalach Baila Ubinal Medina Sayyah. So you have a woman who's married with a child. The husband and child goes to Medina Ziyah. Come and said, your husband died first. So if the husband died, what does that mean? That means the husband died and she has a child. So there is no Yibum. And then what happened? And this is the case, if you remember that we spoke about the Naval Mapailas. We discussed that what happens if there's a fallen building and we have to know who died first. This is for the reason. So Adam came and said the husband died and therefore there is no Yibum. And then your son died and therefore, again, there's no Yibum. You can marry whoever you want. So what does she do? She does just that. And they tell her, no, first your son died, you were still married. Then when your husband died, you were one without any children, or he was one without any children, and therefore you have a chiyuv of yibum. So what is the halacha right now? Teitze, she has to get divorced from her new husband, v'avalad, rishoin v'acharoin mamzer. We'll have to see what rishoin v'acharoin mean, but says the Mishnah, she has to get divorced. And a child, if she had a child from the new marriage, it is a mamzer. Because of course she was chayv in Yibam. Amrullah, if they told her, first your child died, then the husband died, meaning there's a chi of Yibam, and therefore she goes and she does Vinis Yavman, she goes and does Yibam, they tell her, again, it's a mamzer. Case number 2 in the Mishnah. They told her, your husband died. So what does she do? She goes and she gets remarried. Then they tell her, he was alive when you got remarried, but subsequently he died now after you got married. She has to get divorced, but the first kid is a mamzer. We'll see what that means. It means, of course, the kid, a child from her new husband. Amrullah, and the final case of the Mishnah, they told her your husband died. She did Kedushin. And then her husband comes, meaning he didn't die. Mutaris lachzer loisis, he only did Kedushin. She only did Kedushin, excuse me. She's allowed to go back to her first husband. And even though the second and latter husband has to give her a get, even if the last one gave her a get after Kedushin, she's still kosher to a kohen because she's never married him. As the Darish of Elazar ben Masya of Isha Grusha Misha Velo Mi Ish that a get only disallows and forbids a woman from marrying a kohen if it was me'isha from her husband. But since this man was never really her husband, therefore the get does not forbid her from marrying a kohen. So says the Gemara, the detail that's very glaring in the Mishnah, what's Rishon V'Acharoin? Asks the Gemara, my Rishon V'Acharoin, what does it mean the first and latter kids are mamzer? Maybe it means kids that were born before they heard that the husband was really either died first or second, and then the achroin is kids if she remained with that man afterwards. So let's say Vlad Mamzer. Just say Vlad Mamzer. What do you mean Rishon Achroin? So here sure we now understand. Because in the end of the Mishnah we wanted to say, he was alive, but now he's dead. So a Rishon Mamzer, the kids that she had while her husband was still alive, those kids are Mamzerim. And kids that she had after the husband was indeed dead, Einoi Mamzer. So because at the end of the Mishnah we want to write Rishon V'Achroin Tananami Risha, Rishon V'Achroin Mamzer. So again, as always, the Mishnah borrowed the term that uses in the end of the Mishnah. So Tanu Rabbanon says the Gemara, let's delve a bit deeper into this case of Yibam, in which indeed one did or did not have children. So says the Gemara, let's begin with the Brisa. This is in the din of Rabbi Akiva, who says that whenever there's an Isser Lav, Kiddushin is not Taifsin. Marriage does not take effect whenever it is in a prohibition of a Lav. Says the Chachamim, no. In the case of a Yevama, meaning, we have this woman who's supposed to do Yibam. Why? Because her son really died first. So her husband died childless. She's supposed to do Yibam. So she's alive. She's not allowed to marry anyone else. So said Rabbi Akiva, if she goes and marries anyone else, boom, they're all mamzerim. Says the Chachamim, no. Even though it's allowed for her to marry elsewhere, if she does, ein mamzerim, there are no mamzerim. Ask the Gemara, why did the Chacham say there's no mamzerim in this case of Yevama? Why do they say carte blanche across the board? Any case of an Isser Lav, there's no mamzerim. Explains the Gemara, this Tana, the Chachamim is whom? Rabbi Akiva, Damar, Mechayvelavin, Dishe'er Ave Mamzer, Mechayvelavin, grade the law of Mamzer, as we've seen already. There's two levels of Chayvelavin. Is Chayvelavin is something that you're related to that will create a Mamzer, but from a regular Chayvelavin, it will not. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, a very fundamental din that Rabbi Yehuda teaches us about Yibam as we turn over to Sadi Beizam, Beizam, Aram, Menayin, She'ein, Kedushin, Taifsim, B'Yavama. How do we know that if the Yevama goes and tries to marry any other man, the Kedushin does not work? She has to marry the Yavam. And if she goes to marry elsewhere, the Kedushin does not take effect. How do I know? This woman should not be to a foreign man. And we darsh, it says Rav Yudah Marav, that the Havaya, the Kedushin itself is not chal if it is to a Zar, anyone else aside from Yavam. But Ushmol Amar, in our poverty, she needs a get from the second husband. Even though Rav Yudah Marav just taught us the Kedushin is not Taifsim. So if she goes and she does Kedushin to anyone in the world, it's meaningless, it's nothing. Says Shmuel, you need a get. You need a get, Ban Yusenu, in our poverty, as the Tam Rashi points out, because of our poverty that we don't understand the source. Therefore, we don't know the source, I should say. Therefore, says Shmuel, she requires a get. Now explains the Gemara, what exactly is this detail that Shmuel was unsure about? Mesav Kalei Shmuel, 5 lines from the top of Sadi Beizam and Beis. Hi lo teisha meis. When the pasuk says she should not be to a foreign man, this woman, ila lavu dasa. If the pasuk's teaching me that there's an Isser Lav, or idlo tafsi ba kedushin dasa. Shmuel wasn't sure what exactly. How do we learn up the pasuk? Does it teach me that there's just a lav, but the marriage works? Or does it tell me that no, the marriage does not work, and that is the reason why Shmuel taught us that she needs a get from the second husband? Omar le Rav Mari Bar Rachel or Rav Ashi, and of course it's a bit interesting that it goes by Bar Rachel, his mother's name. Basically, the story was that his mother was Mizana with a man named Isser, who subsequently was Megayer. But we don't want Ramari to be known after a Goyish father, and therefore we call him Bar Rachel. So Amli Ramari Bar Rachel Rav Ashi Haki Amar Amimar. This is what Amimar says. Allah can say Dishmuel that you require a get. Amar Rav Ashi Hashlam Amimar Lachsav say Dishmuel Ema Yavama Kayin Chayletzla V'Shar Yala. Says Amimar. 1 second. You're telling me that we paskin like Shmuel, that any time a woman, a Yevama, goes and marries elsewhere, she requires a get from that husband. So ask Samimar 1 second. Let's say she's a kayin, then what's going to happen over here? Chalatzla, the Yavam is going to perform Chalitza V'Sharyala, and then she could stay with her new husband. Because if we were to require a new husband to give her a get, she would then be Asr to a Kayin. She says, Ameimer, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make the Yavam do Chalitza, and then she could stay married to the husband that she married incorrectly. Ask the Gemara, what? It's Gurei, Edgar. The husband, this new husband who married this woman who really needed to do Yibam, he's going to profit. What happened to the classical rule? He's doing an Aveira and he's gaining. How could it be? Says the Gemara, you're right. You know what it meant? If the Yevamo was Yisrael, the second husband has to give her a get, and then she goes back to her husband like she was supposed to, and that's what Shmuel would hold. Continues the Gemara 13 lines down. First on the line is Amar Rav. Amar Rav Gidl, Amar Rav Chibar, Yosef, Amar Rav, Yevama Kedushin Ein Ba, Nisuin Yesh Ba. With regard to Yevama, Kedushin does not take effect, but Nisuin does take effect to her. So now, what exactly does this mean? Explains the Gemara. I don't understand. Kedushin Ein Ba, Nisuin Nami Ein Ba. So explains the Gemara, Ema Kedushin u Nisuin Ein Ba means neither Kedushin or Nisuin or Chal onto a Yevama, obviously aside from the Yavam. Another Pshat, my Nisuin Yeshba Biznos. What does it mean that there is Nisuin? It means that Nisuin is like Znos. If she is Mizaneh in the interim before she does Yivam, then she's also to the Yavam. Why? Because we consider her relations as Znos. The reason is a Gezira Dirabanan, that if she does Kiddushin, she won't require a get. If she does Nisuin, she will require a get, for the simple reason we don't want to confuse this woman with the previous Mishnah that we've been talking about for days. When a woman goes overseas and remarries a new husband, in which she indeed does need a get, so we don't want to confuse the two cases, and therefore will require her to have a get in such a case as well. And we're going to conclude with Amar Rav Yanai. We have a machlekes over here, Rav and Shmuel. So it says Rav Yanai b'chaburanim the v'gamru ein kedushin taifsim b'yamama. The lamaisa kedushin does not work from anyone aside from the Yavam. If anyone else in the world tries to marry her, the Kedushin is not Chal. But Amrle Rav Yechana and Rebbe, Eloi Mishnah, Seini Yizu. Rav Yanai, what are you telling me? It's a regular Mishnah. It's not. If someone says to a woman, I want to marry you after I convert or after you convert. I want to marry you after I become a freed man from my slavery, or after you become free. After your husband dies, after your sister dies, or after Yavam does Chalitza, Einoi Mikudeshes. In all these cases, she's not Mikudeshes. So what do we see? We see very clearly that Kedushin does not work between a Yevama and someone else. So you're coming along, Rav Yanai, and tell me, Nimnu v'gamru in Kedushin types, and it's Pashit. It's a straight up Mishnah that shows me that if a Yevama awaiting Yivam goes and marries anyone else in the world, the Kedushin does not work. So Amar Le, Rav Yanai responds, no, he loved it. Dalila Chasbach. Had I not picked up the shard, Mimishkachas Marganisa, to say, would you have discovered the pearl underneath it? A word teaching me that Rav Yanai is saying, you only understood your din from that Mishnah because I told you the Kedushin is not work. So indeed, we're teaching one and the same, and that is Psak Halacha, which we'll conclude with from today, that Lamais of a Yavam goes and marries elsewhere, the Kedushin is not Chal. We'll pick it up from Reish Lakish in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.